And we are back. I know it's been a while since the McMahon documentary has come out, but I've seen a couple of comments about it in the comment section of most of the videos. So I'm like, we didn't have a topic, so let's talk about it. The McMahon documentary.
It was about what I expected it to be at the end of the day.
We had 6 episodes.
Yep.
It was Junior, because he is a junior. I didn't catch the second episode's name. Screwjob, Attitude, Family Business, and The Finish.
Mhm.
The entire interview that happened and everything that happened was before Grant submitted her lawsuit against
Yep.
McMahon. So they did make a mention of that, and they did ask Mr. McMahon about it, but he was very wishy-washy about it, which was the right call.
Mhm.
There was a lot here to unpack. McMahon was very vague about his upbringing.
Mhm. Well,
Which
he always has been.
he really has been. Being poor in North Carolina, he didn't
Yep.
know his dad until he was 13. There were a few things that I did not know. I did not know that Vince and Vince Sr. had this on-condition buyout. I did not know that. Because it was, I will give you the company, you have to make this amount of money in a certain amount of months, or else I take control back, because Senior did not believe McMahon had the talent to do so.
Right.
So I did not know that that was the case. And he was confident. He told everybody else in the NWA that it was not going to happen, but it did, obviously. And now we're kind of here. The first episode was very dragged out. I liked it. The second episode packed a lot of stuff in it. It was a lot of information. I'm like, you could have made a whole other episode about this.
I think they kind of packed too much, maybe a little bit, into this.
Episode 3, I really liked. It talked about the screw job. It talked about the steroid trial quite a bit.
Because steroid trial, I mean, if you're out, I mean, even if you're inside the lexicon, I mean, that was a pretty big deal. Back in the
I mean,
90s.
McMahon he was about to go to jail. He was about to go to prison. All of that happened there. The billionaire Ted skits they talked about on how petty that was. I would have. Is Ted Turner still alive?
Yeah, I think he is.
I would have loved for him to be in this documentary. That would have been hilarious. That'd have been great. They talked about the Attitude Era quite a bit, obviously. They talked about Owen Hart and ECW with that for episode 4. Nothing to write home to mom about there. Family Business. They talked more so about how Stephanie and Shane got involved, where they started out.
That's really when they got involved in the business, along with Linda. Linda was more involved, I think.
She was back, and she did not want to be on camera.
Right.
She was very much a businesswoman person regarding the company.
Yeah.
They talked about the Trish Stratus stuff, which was weird, but it was the Attitude Era.
Yeah. Times were a little bit different.
Yep. Talked about the start of the Ruthless Aggression Era, and then the finish. Finally, they talked about the Donald Trump involvement. I wish they talked about more about the Chris Benoit stuff.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think that we got a lot of it I think it's been done to death at this point.
That's true. They talked about CTE, Stone Cold. I have no idea what went through his head saying, I don't believe that CTE exists. Honey, we can literally see it.
Right.
There's a reason why Chris Benoit's brain looked like Swiss cheese.
Right.
That's called CTE.
Right.
How about all the NFL players who committed suicide because of it? How about Daphne, who did the same exact thing? She had CTE. The NDAs with all the sex scandals. McMahon was weird about that.
Well, I think he had to be, because he was probably under some sort of statute that he had to be as vague as possible about it.
Yep. They really put in a lot of effort with Shane, because Shane was sort of like the black sheep of WWE, like the family itself, because he wanted to buy the UFC and ECW back in the day.
Yeah.
They talked about that, where Shane wanted to earn Mr. McMahon's respect. Very much the same wavelength that McMahon did. There was a lot of parallels.
Yeah, there are.
Between how Shane and Vince talked and how Vince and his dad talked.
Yeah.
It was very, very similar.
It's like father, like son, right?
Yep. And they, like I said, talked about the Grant lawsuit and all of that, but it was very early on. Mr. McMahon said he didn't do it. I don't know right now. I'm letting the courts decide. But that was really it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to...
There was just a lot of information packed into these episodes. I mean, those will probably have to watch it a few times to get every single piece and morsel out of it.
Yep.
But it was very, obviously WWE had no involvement in the making of this documentary.
They did not.
And
I think that's why it felt a little more authentic, because you couldn't have the WWE spin on it.
Right, you couldn't have it whitewashed.
Yep.
And I think the biggest criticism is just it felt very, very heavy, very packed.
Yep.
And if you already know a lot about these stories, there's no new information that you're going to gather from what happened. Like, Vince McMahon was pretty, like, the information that he provided is information that you probably already knew.
Yep, exactly.
At some point. Like, he didn't come out with some new revelation.
No, there was nothing really new here. I mean, it was produced well. I really did like it there. The interviews were pretty okay for the most part. Like you said, Dark Side of the Ring, I think, just kind of did it better.
Well, I think Dark Side of the Ring 2 is a little, I think they have a little more freedom because of the involvement of Netflix within WWE's future plans.
Right.
So
also, this is Netflix next to Vice. Vice is a little more...
Vice is a little more edgy. Vice is a little more creative freedom when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I like Dark Side of the Ring more just because they talk about the stories that maybe I'm not too fully aware of. Like,
and it also gives insight into, it also gives information that you probably don't know.
Right.
Because Vince McMahon is very known for being prolific with what he knows.
Yes. Yeah, so that was really it. If you have some time, go out of your way. Each episode's about an hour long.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
It
was what I expected it to be. Like, it wasn't going to be some new bombshell, like, expose.
Right.
It was just Vince McMahon telling his story.
Exactly. With some skits and all that fun stuff, other interviews, sort of how we got there. And, I mean, that was really about it. It was an enjoyable watch, but, once again, if you were looking for something new and fresh and exciting, there were some sprinklings in there, but really not too many.
Right.
Anyway, so when we come back, we are going to watch in the same wavelength of this episode. We're going to be watching a Vince McMahon match.
Yay!